Okay, so, well, I start with a problem, because any good project starts with a need, doesn't it? So, in the performing arts, we have a great, it's a great domain to work in, it's a great domain to enjoy, but in this day and age, it's a problem for AI. AI needs to be trained with a lot of, there we go, with a lot of data about the performing arts, and this data is not easily accessible. First of all, what is the work in the performing arts? It's some intangible thing, that there's not a lot of information available about it. It's manifested as performances, very ephemeral events. It does not lend itself easily to representation in the form of data. And when people attempt to do it, well, sometimes it's rather incomplete, and then it leaves very little traces over the web. So many challenges in a day when pretty much not quite yet, but very soon, every cultural consumption will be mediated at some point through some AI. So the solution, there's more than one, but we're going to talk about one today, which is Artsdata. So what is Artsdata? So Artsdata is a knowledge graph that is open and accessible to everyone. It's also a community of users who are providing data and consuming data from Artsdata. So what is a knowledge graph? Well, simply put, it's a set of technologies for representing relationships between things and other things, and stored in what is called a graph database. You're likely familiar with relational databases. This is a different kind of database that focuses on the connections between things. Here's a very simple graph where we have the show, the Res Sisters, being performed at the Stratford Festival. Now, this graph can be expanded. What can we say about, gosh, I need to minimize this thing here. There. Sorry, folks. Much better. There we are. So, what can we say about this thing? Well, if we explore the graph, we find out that this work that this performance is actually taking place at a given time. And it's not any event, it's actually a performance event. It's been presented by Shakespeare at the Tom Patterson Canopy Theatre, which has a postal code, and the work of Red Sister is a play by Thompson Highway. All of these things can be described as nodes, describing the entity, and as arcs or relationships or properties linking them. This is graph data. So it's kind of similar to the Google Knowledge Graph. So it uses the same powerful technologies, graph data, arcs or relationships, and it is also linked to several open databases. However, it is very much different in that, contrary to Google, it's not owned by a multinational corporation. It belongs to a community of users, and it's open to anyone. You cannot really use what's in the Google Knowledge Graph. Well, you can query it with Google, but you cannot really download the data or do much with it. With Artsdata, you can. Briefly about the community group, the people who are driving Artsdata. This is our governance body with its vision of a graph by and for a community of users, about a graph that is decentralized and a governance model that we're still building up as Artsdata is evolving, and also building an ecosystem of tools around Artsdata. Data is great, but if you have no means of accessing it, of playing with it, of exploring it, it's of less value. So we're building tools along with that. What are the advantages of Artsdata and of this graph data? We'll go over some of those. First off, I want to emphasize decentralization. So we're not pretending to have the one truth about data. Rather, we want to give authority to our data providers. So each data provider keeps their data, and we only store a copy of it in our data for information retrieval purposes. Preservation. As I said earlier, a lot of data about the performing arts disappears as soon as the event is done. When we load a copy of the data to the Arts Data Knowledge Graph, we make it sure that it remains accessible even when it disappears from the source data. Interoperability. We have many information systems in the performing arts. Up to recently, very few of them could exchange any data together. Artsdata provides a means for connecting information systems that otherwise would not be able to speak to one another. Other advantages, it's machine readable. So search engines and large language model chatbots can crawl Artsdata, can index it, can download it. It's also connected, just like the Google Knowledge Graph, to the web of open data. So we're connected to Wikidata, to MusicBrainz, to VIAF, and a bunch of open-based registry or authority files, call them whatever you want. They're interconnected. And reusability. So any data in Artsdata can be freely copied, downloaded, edited, and reused by anyone. In economics, we say of data that it is a non-rival commodity. So you can have your cake, eat it, and let your friends have it too. And it's still going to be there for other friends to have. So this is a bit of a diagram outlining the kind of data sources in Artsdata. So we have almost 200 interconnected data sources that are connected to one another via Artsdata. We have industry platforms that are storing information about touring shows. We have ticketing services. We have membership directories, including Gepago's own directory, but also a bunch of other membership directories. We have websites. We're calling websites as well and loading their data in. This data is being provided to events listings, who then return some of their data back to Artsdata. And as I mentioned, we're connected to knowledge bases. We're hoping to start working with the tourism sector, but it's not going as fast as we would like. So if you want to give Destination Toronto a nudge, that would be very much appreciated. So here's an example. So this is a screenshot from the website of the Sanderson Center for the Performing Arts. And their data is scraped by one of our robots. And then this data is transformed, enriched, and loaded to Artsdata. And then this data is then being pushed and reused in other calendars, including the Indigenous Performance Calendar on the website of the Indigenous Performing Arts Alliance. What is great in there is that the effort done to populate the data once doesn't need to be repeated on the other website. So where are we at? So this is an overview of the amount of data. We have data about roughly 4,000 organizations, 5,000 places, 12,000 persons. Actually, we have more than that, but some of those data records are not disambiguated, so they haven't been assigned a clear identifier. So this is what we have that is disambiguated. And we have some 35,000 events, but it's going fast. Because currently we're loading events at a pace of 20,000 per year. So it's going to blow out of proportion very quickly. No, Justin, you don't have to go to Eventbrite. I mean, you can still use Eventbrite if you want. There's nothing wrong with Eventbrite, but there are other means to get your event data out and accessed by by arts goers and data consumers. And in total, we have more than 6 million pieces of information about these thousands of entities. A few user stories. So arts, culture, and bees. So this is in New Brunswick. So we have the government of New Brunswick that had a listing site in which they needed to manually populate every single event. This didn't work for them and then they found out about Artsdata. So right now we have data coming in from one industry platform, it's called Send Francophone, and loaded to Artsdata. We have a bunch of individual websites loaded to Artsdata. This event information is loaded, transformed, and enriched in Artsdata, and then it's passed on to the Footlight CMS, where it's first further enriched. And the Footlight CMS is a software designed by Culture Creates, the tech company that Caitlin is part of. And then this is pushed to a calendar where you and I can browse the data over a map or over a listing. And this is one example of many sources, some of them in French, others in English, others bilingual, but eventually making their way into a single site, a single bilingual site. Another example, I referred to the Indigenous Performance Calendar on the Indigenous Performing Arts Alliance website. This is a very cool use case because this one draws on event information that comes from multiple websites, but it also draws on Indigenous identification, self-identification information that is populated in Wikidata. The two of them are assembled through a federated query, so we created two databases to deliver the data to these two calendars that are featuring not quite the same data points because they're consuming it from different perspectives, but some of the same events are listed on both the IPA, Indigenous Performing Arts Alliance website, and on the Lodgepole Alliance website. And finally, the Live Performing Arts directory. So it's Capitalist member directory, and it pulls data from our own member database, from Artsdata. It pulls data from Wikidata as well, and our members' websites. So whenever there are events available, event data available, we also display that into our calendar. Which brings me to web scraping. Good. That's good for the Q&A, Justin. We'll talk about that later on. Is there any one of these user stories that you'd like to explore further? So, if you care about learning more about the arts culture envy and how they're dealing with their data, raise your hand. And online as well, although I cannot see you at present. So a few about...
thumbs up online as well.
Okay. If you want to hear more about the Indigenous Performance Calendar. A few hands less, and the membership directory. Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you, but not a winner. I think where we have a few more hands for arts, culture, and Brie. How is this? Is this online? Do we have the same winner online, or do we need to do a new account?
No, we have equal and equal between art and
It's so big.
Is it possible to do both
the
demos?
fight between Gary and Natasha, just to be honest.
Okay, one vote online. So let's go with arts, culture, and B. Okay, so Caitlin will be helping me with this one. So last weekend I was listening to the radio. Yeah, some people still listen to the good old radio. I do. And I discovered an artist that I should have known by now, but I didn't, named Alphonse Bisaillon, and found out that he's touring in the Atlantic region. Oh, what a nice story for this presentation. So, Caitlin, can you tell me, is Alphonse Bisaillon perchance performing in New Brunswick?
Well, yes, he is actually, and we can find him online. So I will, can I share my screen?
You may.
All right, so I'll send my request. This one. Hi, everyone. So I'm sharing my screen, but I'll just want to start with a little background on Arts, Culture, NB. I know Frédéric talked a little bit about this already. And the thing about Arts, Culture, NB is it's like, it's run by the government of New Brunswick, and they had a listing site that was managed by one person, this Arts Culture NB, and it was one person doing manual entry for the entire province, trying to get hundreds of venues and many events in. And of course, that was pretty much impossible because, we have small budgets, small resources in the art sector. So they were, doing the best that they could. And they weren't able to fulfill what they wanted to do, but they became interested in Artsdata when they found out that Rad Arts, which is an organization in New Brunswick, they found out that Rad Arts was developing a project with Artsdata to develop the new website Scène Francophone. Frédéric mentioned that one earlier. So when they realized that they could get hundreds of venues and many events from the Scène Francophone, the Scène Francophone site, i.e. they would not have to manually enter every single one, they were very interested because they explored a few options. They approached the Artsdata team and they said, we want to do this. They tried to think of different ways that they could do it. But again, with resources and time, they chose Footlight CMS because of the fact that it had right away a bi-directional link with Artsdata. We developed it so that any data, we can get data out of Artsdata and we can also put data back into Artsdata. So that was easy for them to use. It's an easy design, so it was easy to ramp up on it. So they added it to their, tech stack. And they were doing some work on their website anyways, so they went with that direction. I'm going to show you what that looks like, and I just want to say that the thing is for them, what makes them really happy is they've probably reduced their workload by 90% because they no longer have all that data entry to do. They no longer have to search the web manually to try to find the events, to look at different sites. They can just go to Artsdata and they bring it in. So like you can see here, this is the Footlight interface. It's built for the art sector. It's designed to speak to them in their language so that they can be comfortable. And you can bring data in, you can manually add events. This is an example of an event that the admin added. And you can also, you can invite as many users as you want. And you can have aggregators. So this one right here is the Scène Francophone aggregator. And what it does is it goes to Artsdata once a week, twice a week, whatever schedule they choose to grab the events from Artsdata that have been put, as Frédéric showed earlier, through a data feed into Artsdata. Scène Francophone is an open project, so that data is freely available to Arts, Culture, NB. So when I sort on that and I look for this event, this is the event that Frédéric was interested in going to. You can see right here that if I were so inclined, and I don't have to if I'm non-technical, this link right here takes me to the event in Artsdata. So I can see that, so I have all sorts of data information about this event. I have an image, status, and I have an event type, a location, a description, etc. And most people aren't going to do that. What they're really going to work in is they're going to look at the event here and they're going to go, do I have everything that I want for this event? You've got your admin reviewing it. So he says he has his title. He had these two pieces of information here were not there, but he has all the information like the location. This comes in fully built thing. It's not just a string, it's an entity, and it comes in with the address, and it has, that it's contained in another place. So whatever information that we've linked together in Artsdata is coming into Footlight. So that just solves a whole bunch of problems for the user. It has information about, this is the image, he got it for free, he didn't have to copy paste that in. The organizer of the event, which is really important to people in the arts sector. They really care about who's the organizer because often they're one of the members of the community. It tells you what language the event is going to happen in. And this is like a choice you can, because often events are in either English or in French in Canada. So sometimes if you're in Quebec and you have a comedian coming that's going to speak English, you could put in there that the event language is English and vice versa. And, we do have a couple of comedians that are bilingual, so out of Montreal. So we get all that information. And because he wanted to, on his site, Arts, Culture, NB, they use filters. So they like to allow visitors, like you would see on most sites, to be able to like search and filter events as they decide what they want to go and see. So he went in and he added the performance event type and the event discipline music. And if we go and we look at their event here, we can see that these are the filters at the top that is getting directly populated from the CMS. So if I were to go to music and I wanted to see all the music events on this site, they designed this site and it's supported by open data and data that is from the knowledge graph via the CMS. And you can scroll down and you see that you have all of your information populated here. And as soon as he publishes here to his website, the admin, the update with this new information, this enriching data about the event that wasn't in the original entity is added and taken back into Artsdata. So if we go here and you look at Artsdata, you can scroll down and you can see we have a same as from the Footlight CMS. And in this event, where you didn't have, you had typed in this first event, linked, no one uniquely identified as the same event, also has the additional information about music, performance, and the fact that it's a French language event. That means that if someone else wants to use this event in the future, they can have access to all that data. So it's a really, what's fantastic about this for the arts sector is the fact that it really reduces the work and it increases the quality and their confidence in that what they're talking about remains up to date and accurate so that they get the bums in seats to come and see the shows that don't have the same like popularity strength that you find in Google for someone like Taylor Swift or whatever. These are like niche events and you know that you can use broadcasted across multiple sites. I think that's it. There you go. Back to you, Frédéric.
Thank you, Caitlin. So that's the end of our formal presentation, and we're already, I think, kind of into the Q&A because I see a lot of questions in the chat. Justin was asking how do events get loaded from websites to Artsdata. So for event data to be loaded from a website, first it needs to be populated on the website using schema structured data, which is a common method. I mean, it's part of the SEO arsenal. It's been part of the SEO arsenal for a decade already, and it's a means of describing what a web page is about. And so if there is schema structured data on the site, we can send a robot, crawl it just the same way as Google crawls, and then we load that data into Artsdata. When there are some incomplete or inexact data points, we can fix small errors. If there's a missing time zone, for example, and we can reconcile the place, know where the place is exactly, then we can add the time zone to the time as well, so that if someone wants to download this to their calendar, it would go to the right, it would have the right time. So this is the process for getting data from a website. This is one of many processes for getting data from a website to Artsdata. We can also load data from APIs, and yeah, we can also configure custom crawlers to scrape off of the text as well. But structured data is one of the easiest means, and the great thing is when arts organizations actually do this for themselves, for their own good, it boosts their SEO, it drives traffic to their site, and we can add their information to Artsdata and pass it on to listing sites.
Do you think I could just add a little thing there, Frédéric? If you don't mind, I was going to say that part of the vision that Frédéric and other like kind of stakeholders in Artsdata have been working towards is the interoperable infrastructure between all of the different tools. And Artsdata is like the jewel of the crown that really enables participation. So if we have interoperable infrastructures via, like Frédéric mentioned, like schema or structured data or like efficient scraping tools, which is like, I even hesitate to say that, but sometimes that's what people need. And also the ability to like kind of massage the data, tools on either end that allow people to work with the data. Then you start to create that interoperable infrastructure that allows data to flow really smoothly through the entire structure. So I just wanted to add that because it's such a key part for participation where you equal the playing field. And that's a core value of the arts sector, is that equaling the playing field and providing access to culture and the Canadian identity through how they work and how you can access events and right down to the level of like digital transformation.
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin, as well for the demo. That was incredibly cool and incredibly fun. I want to switch over to, if that's why, the Q&A section.
Yeah.
But before we start, I want a big round of applause for Caitlin and also. The demo was incredible as well, and we're excited to get more in depth into this. So I'll be opening up the Q&A section. I want to ask quickly, do you want to record the Q&A section, or we can stop the recording here?
Sure. Okay, you can keep recording.
We'll be continuing to record. We're going to start off with in person. We're going to do 2 in person, and then Ashish, we're going to do 2 online. Is that okay?
Okay, but they're already fighting about it, so be careful.
So could you repeat it once more, Ashish?
All good. Who will be there?
Hi, really good presentation, thanks. My question was, have you considered, you must have looked into, I guess, since you have such a large set of data, you must have looked in, have you ever looked into using it to like mine metrics or find, okay, so find like things like what François was demoing, I guess, last week. Basically just like visualizing that data, or using network graphs or something like that to more on the analytical side, I guess. But like, have you found any insights from that data about how, or do you think that people, or do you think that there are use cases for people or data analysts to use this data in that sense rather than just as an event platform? That's a question, yeah.
Very good question. In terms of visualization, we're not doing a whole lot of it. Yeah, we can place events on or locations on a map. That's very easy. If you like Wikidata, you can do it yourself in Wikidata. You can just query the data from Wikidata, which is basically you have much of the same data that we have is also in Wikidata. We work in tandem. So we're not doing much visualization just yet. Eventually we might be doing more. In terms of other use case than just events, we are starting to use it for research purposes. And I could perhaps turn to Gary to explain how he used it to identify presenters who are committed to presenting Indigenous artists. We just queried the database. We find out who's presenting performances where the performer is identified as Indigenous, and then we analyze the data. And it was quite instructive. Similarly, we looked at data coming in from an industry platform and wondered how many of these are Indigenous performances. We could find that out because the performers were clearly identified. And as it turns out, this plug booking process is yielding like a fair proportion of performances by Indigenous artists. It's cool. The next potential use case is we're going to use some of this data for surveying audiences. Enabling audience to say which arts organizations they visited in the last year, and rather than then clicking to a drop-down list of 3,000 entries, they will be able to just type in their answers, what we're going to call the reconciliation API, return a string that matches their entry, they click on it, and then they import the data, which will enable a lot of cross-data analysis between the answers from the arts goers and the characteristics of the organizations that they attended.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. It's really eye-opening, and so I never really thought about having a Wikipedia, but for like artists. Like that's something that's very interesting because I'm very active in the art scene in Toronto, and I know that a lot of some of the smaller world music musicians and other people who like go through venues and so on always have to like find platforms and ways to like advertise themselves and get buy-in from festivals and so on. Have you found any kind of buy-in from that community just yet, or is it something that's like you guys are slowly building more and more to reach that level, I guess?
I'll need the mic to answer for those who are online. So we know that the data from Wikidata is used by large language models and by search engines to some extent. Typically, it's ingested by large language models and then they forget where it came from. Does this have an impact on how the industry actually makes decisions? We have another use case that was not in my user stories today, wherein an app designed for presenters to book performances. They are importing data records from Artsdata about artists. In the past, someone needed to manually create a data record for each performing artist and for their show. Now they can import this data from Artsdata. Now the data that they're importing might be coming from Wikidata, might be coming from other apps, might be coming from directories, member directories. So I can say for sure that it is having an immediate impact on an artist's career trajectory. What we know anecdotally, though, is that sometimes incorrectly entered data in Wikidata is picked up by search engines, and people wonder why they are depicted in such and such fashion on Google until the data is fixed in Wikidata, and then suddenly it's fixed in Google as well.
Yeah, I was just wondering because like I've been trying to get artworks on the same page as far as community events in our area, and I want to advocate for them to use this kind of protocol or whatever. So I guess I'm just wondering like any advice you have for how to sell arts organizations on this. I've heard SEO improvements. Can you speak to that more though?
Absolutely. So when you talk to these organizations, first of all, tell them that if they implement structured data on their website, they will see like an immediate improvement on their ranking on Google and other search engines, and eventually on chatbots as well. And this will drive traffic to their website. We actually did a research project a year ago to quantify that. And so we built a data structuring index to quantify the quantity and quality of structured data on a website. And we found out that with each 10% increase on the index of structured data, there was a 3% increase of web traffic coming from Google specifically. And we can presume that the same effect is happening with other search engines as well. So it's a major driver. Some data points have proven to be even more powerful than others. I don't want to go into this detail, but we have this information on the Artsdata website. It's a hard sell for arts organization to do this because they don't have the know-how internally. So they need to turn to their web developers. Sometimes they don't have a web developer, which is why we are working with tools like the Footlight CMS that makes it possible for someone to populate data from scratch. We have other, like we have a tool called Google Sheet to Artsdata. You just load your information to Google Sheet and we load it to Artsdata, and then it returns JSON LD that you can just copy and paste on your website. So it could be as easy as that. If you're using a software like the Footlight CMS and your data is loaded to Artsdata, you can go to Artsdata, retrieve your event, and then download a JSON LD script that you can just copy and paste on your website. So we created multiple tools like that, and we're not the only ones. There are other tools like Web Code Tools is a free suite of services online that people can use to create structured data. So it's not an easy sell. But check out our tools, and then if you have more tools to recommend, let us know, because we're providing this kind of data literacy as well to our members.
So we'll do one more. I think Sonal has a question.
Hi, yeah, I'll make it quick. Thanks for standardizing the data set that you presented and the CMS. I just had a question about what's in line for future, maybe something like an alternative of Ticketmaster, something that could do transaction. Is that in your roadmap? Have you thought about something like that?
No, we don't want to go into the ticketing business. No, instead of creating our own ticketing service, we want to work with ticketing service providers to first tap into their data, but also provide them with our data. So far, it's working only in one direction. They're giving us their data, but they don't have the bandwidth to think creatively about how they could reuse data in Ars Data. But knowing, for example, that a clearly identified performer drives between 35 to 60% more traffic from Google, then perhaps it would be a good thing for these ticketing service providers to call the Ars Data, to enable their users to call the Ars Data API to retrieve a performer record and load it into their data, because this in the end will drive more traffic, which will drive more sales and make their business more profitable. So we're trying to make that case with ticketing service providers, and we want definitely to stay away from the ticketing business.
That is a great note to end on. Actually, genuinely a great note to end on. So thank you so much, Frédéric, for this presentation. I want to give a lovely round of applause again.